You're listening to Key Conversations for Leaders. This is episode number 19. Welcome, everybody. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about success and resilience with Curtis McCoy. We'll be covering how to surround yourself with positive thinkers, dealing with negativity in an organization, and how to differentiate your business by being present, and much, much more. If you look at the major successes and the massive setbacks you've had in your career, they can all be traced back to a conversation you either had or didn't have. In fact, your future and that of your company is determined by the quality of conversations you have with your team, your customers, and yourself. And that's what this show is about. Better conversations for better leaders. Hey everybody, and welcome to Key Conversations for Leaders. I'm your host, John Ryan, and today we have a very special guest, Curtis McCoy. Curtis is a serial entrepreneur, speaker, and host of the podcast Success, Motivation, and Inspiration. At age 27, he seemed like he had the life of his dreams until a series of medical problems turned his life upside down. And then he began studying and talking with leaders to change his mindset and turn his health and his life around, and now shares those concepts with his clients and his listeners. Welcome to the show, Curtis.
Thanks so much, John. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Curtis, I want to start by asking you, I know that you have been through a number of, threatening health issues in your life, including that you started to have grand mal seizures. You suffered for type 1 diabetes, had a brain tumor. At one point, can you tell us a little bit about your health journey and how it's impacted your life?
Yeah, so that's not really the most uplifting story, but I was born with type 1 diabetes at 27 months old. I guess not born with it. I was diagnosed at 27 months old and started having seizures around 8 years old. So, I was having 7 to 10 seizures a week, and I had launched multiple successful companies, a medical franchise, bodybuilding company, nutritional supplement company, a clothing company, manufacturing Christian clothing, and had a an online forum with 27,000, I think, was our highest number of online members in any 1 hour. So pretty good business like that. But as I was building these successful companies, I was also, I'd be sponsoring an MMA fight at the Denver Coliseum one day, and I passed out, had a seizure, banging my face on the ground, just looked like I was in the MMA fight, but I was just supposed to be one of the sponsors. And so,
Wow.
A lot of things like that where I guess you'd say pretty depressing kind of stuff with, easy to get feeling down and feeling sorry for yourself and stuff. So I try to keep a positive outlook and all that. But
So after, and that was when the diagnosis for the brain tumor had happened at that point?
no, so I actually woke up one morning and had another seizure, and I woke up and I half of my body didn't work. So we thought it was a TIA stroke. I crawled in, with one hand. At the time I was bodybuilding, and, I had a 455-pound bench press and, 19 and a quarter inch arms, pretty swole up, look like the picture of fitness. But I woke up and half my body literally would not move. My face was saggy. And so I crawled into the kitchen where my phone was plugged in, grabbed the cord and pulled it off the counter, and dialed my mom with my other hand, and was trying to tell her, "Hey, Mom, I'm got too low. I had a seizure for some reason. I can't use half my body now. I'm not sure what's up." And when she answered the phone, I said, "Chicken, pituitary, waffle, phone charger." No, so just random words. And so I'm trying to tell her, "Hey, I'm too low," and it's just these random things. So my mom actually called 911 when she figured out I couldn't communicate anymore, and paramedics showed up, and it was the same string of random words that I'm getting furious. Like, what is wrong with me? I can't, mind over matter, make yourself say something, you idiot. So as paramedics are there, and I finally I pulled myself up on the door handle, got to where I was standing up on the one leg there, and, other side of me is still kind of saggy, and the paramedic hands me a notepad. So I grabbed the notepad, and I'm, trying to write with one hand that's still floppy, kind of coming back, and I write out this whole thing. "Hey, listen, I'm insulin-dependent diabetic." At the time, I owned a pharmaceutical company as well, so we were manufacturing injectable research peptides. So I'm like, I understand the medical side of it, So I'm trying to write out a, professional message about, hey, I had a low glucose, just need to get some sugar. I'm diabetic. Here's the stuff. I hand it back to him. And the guy looks at the note, looks confused, and he hands it back to me. And then I'm furious, going, this is not what I just wrote. This is this random string of words. So I cross it out, ticked off. I'm like, no, start writing down again, and hand it back. And again, was just unable to communicate whatsoever. So then they rushed me to the hospital and thought that it was a stroke. And as they started testing and stuff, it was a malignant glioblastoma brain tumor. So they gave me 60 to 90 days to live about 10 years ago with that tumor. So,
Well, congratulations on beating it. Did they have to operate, or what was the outcome of that?
so the doctors at Swedish Medical Center in Denver, with some of the top oncologists in the country there, and had finally, I remember the doctor coming in, putting his hand on my mom's shoulder, and said, "Sorry, there is zero chance of survival. There will be no survival 5 years." And so, my mom's saying, "Well, what about chemo? What about brain surgery? What about radiation? What about the different?" The doctor says, "Yes, I think we should do all that and put him on painkillers, and make sure that I wasn't in too much pain for my last couple months." And he told her to make some memories with a little bit of time we had left. So he was saying maybe Disneyland or something like that. And so my folks took me to Tijuana, Mexico, and we went to the Hoxie Biomedical Center down there. Like I said, at the time, I owned a cosmetic medical laser center and, manufacturing injectable pharmaceutical grade research peptides. So my mom's telling me she's going to take me out of the country to Mexico for treatment. I'm mad at that too. I'm like, I've got a doctor works for me. I've got, I'm manufacturing injectable research peptides. America is the best medical treatment you're going to get.
Sure.
But so I finally agreed to go to Mexico because doctors here said there was zero chance of survival. And when we got down there, the doctor told me, I was asking this just a genius doctor down there that I was expecting, cockroaches crawling on the floor, kind of a medicine in a hut somewhere.
Sure, like on TV, I imagine. Yeah.
But yeah, it was absolutely an incredible clinic. And, 10 years later here, I'm still around. And as you can hear, I figured out how to communicate again. Talk too much now.
Congratulations. And was that frustration, was that at all related to your desire to help people communicate more effectively? Because I know you've written some books on communication, obviously leadership, success, inspiration, motivation. Was that related to that, or was that always been a drive for you to improve your communication and help others do the same?
Now, I actually, at the time, I was bodybuilding. I had, nutritional supplement company and the pharmaceutical business and stuff. And my goal was not, I've always loved people. I mean, anywhere I go, I try to go to the coffee shop and make sure I know each of the people's names and, figure out the eye color of my waitress, kind of a thing. Just love connecting with folks. But I really didn't start making it a point to try to help other people with communication until after I'd gone through all that. And you can see me on the video call here. I'm definitely no bodybuilder anymore. So that wasn't really a focus until after I'd got sick.
Okay, so after you got sick, I know your story is you started studying other successful people, motivational speakers, transformational experts, and really started modeling what is to do and changing your mindset.
Yeah,
And really became a student of communication.
absolutely. Yeah.
So what do you think in your research and your working with clients is really that good conversationalists do? Because I know you've written a book about how to really be good with the conversations. What do good conversationalists do that other people don't?
Now this is, I'll give this more as a, not lead by example, but I'll share what I've learned from people who actually are good conversationalists. And we all know somebody who, you ask a question or they ask you a question, and the only reason they even ask you the question is to prepare their story to tell you the next thing about themselves. But excellent conversationalists, I'd say the biggest thing I've learned from any of them is they're great listeners, and they actually care about the answer that you're going to give. They're not just asking the question in order to one-up you or, make themselves sound good. So that's the biggest thing is just loving people and being able to, I mean, if you don't love people, you may be able to teach yourself to be a great conversationalist, but it's kind of like the snake oil salesman where, he's just saying something to get you to.
People can tell that these days, can't don't you think that people can tell when people are being inauthentic and not really caring and listening to what others have to say?
Absolutely. Well, especially on these video calls, that's one of the things that I love. In the past, I was doing phone calls, interviewing these experts and stuff, and like, man, when you can, some of the guys that I've interviewed, I'll try to, if possible, sit down and have lunch with them and be able to talk and have that connection. Man, I just love the be able to have that interaction and see the look on their face and see if you're actually connecting or if it's just the words. So
So, what advice would you have or say to someone who wants to have an important conversation, perhaps a difficult one, but they're not sure what's going to happen and they're holding back?
so for me, again, you can tell I have a hard time remembering what we're even speaking about because of the brain cancer. So I am no one to teach about how to be a fluent linguist, but the biggest thing is just connecting and just loving people. So if you've got that true empathy and connection and really caring about what somebody's saying and caring about helping them, that's the same thing with the difficult conversation. Like when I've had to fire employees, or you've got a breakup, or you've got something where it's just not working out. But if you're making I guess the point, if in the back of your mind, the main point of the thing is coming out where both of you are in a win-win situation. I mean, whether that's buying a car and you're trying to get a better deal, but if you're going, hey, I want to make sure this salesman's making some commission and want to make sure I'm not ruining his day by getting the best deal on this vehicle. The whole thing, I think, if you love people first, the conversations are typically easier, even if they're difficult.
Well, that's a good point. Even in a perceived competitive conversation where it could be a win lose, you can still have a win-win framework and make sure that they're taken care of. Because if you take care of them, they're gonna also take care of you. And it's not just an ends justify the means thing; it's also the right thing to do
Yeah, absolutely.
because they're there to provide a service and try to take care of their family too as well. What do you find most fulfilling for you about connecting with people? I know you said like even when you go to restaurants, that I like to get people's names, learn about them. You mentioned the eye color as well. What for you is most fulfilling about connecting with other people and creating those relationships?
I just love people. I think that's kind of a natural thing. I grew up in a real rough household where children would be seen and not heard, that kind of a thing, and so I didn't really learn to communicate or connect with people until, I mean, I was in college and playing on the football team in high school and stuff, and you go make the winning touchdown or tackle somebody or whatever, and everybody's running up, Curtis, great job. I hang my head down and walk off. Thanks, guys. Kind of a just had that didn't have that ability, and so I naturally was not someone who liked connecting with people. I could have been probably sitting today in a dark dark room somewhere reading a book just by myself, but I chose at that time getting out of college and realizing, hey, I'm gonna be a weirdo if I don't start connecting with people. So I made it a point where every day at the time I'd rather somebody poke my eye out than have to go talk to somebody. But I made it a point to go out and every single day I made someone smile at me. So go to the restaurant, go to a coffee shop or go walk through the grocery store and just ask somebody to say, notice, hey, I like that watch, or hey, you looks like you just colored your hair. It looks great, or whatever. Just noticing something about somebody. Um, that was a major struggle, major stretch, but just forcing myself to communicate and trying to make somebody else's day better was really the big change there. So, and now it's addicting. You love that once you start connecting with folks. So,
Well, with I know pre-interview we're talking about the pandemic and quarantining a little bit. People now more than ever with the isolation that we've gone through and for many people are still going through, I think we're really realizing the importance of connection and the importance that we're social creatures, and without that it really really can be difficult. So when you were growing up, you said children should be seen but not heard. it sounds like you weren't allowed to celebrate success either. You score the touchdown and you'd walk off, head down, and you're just doing your job. Have you learned to celebrate your successes?
Yeah, and that's another thing you just pointed out. I just realized, but I spent years and years not ever rewarding myself. Working 7 days a week, crazy, crazy hours, and never, never being enough, kind of a thing. So yeah, that's a big thing I've realized recently is taking, making yourself celebrate, and whether it's yourself or your team or husband, wife, whatever. That's a great thing. Be able to celebrate your victories. So there's actually a chapter about that in my most recent book about celebrating your victories.
Oh, really? Excellent. What do you have any tips? Because I think that's a real struggle for a lot of high performers is we become so task focused and result focused that we will work. I had a client of mine say that he will work for 3 years on a specific outcome, and if he achieves it at 10 o'clock in the morning, by noon he's like, okay, what's next?
Exactly. Yep.
And doesn't really take time to celebrate or rejoice and all that. Is that something you go into in your book and on how to create a ritual of celebration?
That's actually one that I am still terrible about. I've got better at finally taking a break and going. Um, I had been shopping for cars I was driving this old beat up Jaguar that it's a nice car, but not. It had a V6, and I really just did not. I'm a sound guy, and so I love when you get in the car and you start it up and there's just that nasty rumble, and so every time I get in the car, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty, but it's not exciting to drive. So that was a one of the things is finally setting a goal where I had cash where I could pick out whatever vehicle I was going to grab the next, but I kept my eye on this BMW 550i X-Drive, the twin turbo V8. Just a pretty neat vehicle, and I spent a year and a half with I had the cash set aside, but spent a year and a half going by looking at this thing, looking at different versions as the different colors, different options and stuff, until I had a goal where like, okay, when I finally get this next thing achieved, I'm gonna go do it. So yeah, I think the problem with most people is not rewarding themselves too soon. There are a small percentage of us that do that, but the vast majority of folks are overindulged. They go out and finance that next new vehicle. They go out and finance. People are putting Red Lobster dinners on a credit card. Talk about the definition of no delayed gratification.
Well, and it depends on how you use that. Like, so obviously, some people put it on there for just cash management and pay one bill each month. But if you're not paying that off, you're right. Then that's an expense versus good debt versus bad debt, like that
Exactly.
kind of idea. And you said you had the cash on hand, and you kind of mentioned something about timing. I want to see if we can explore that a little bit. You said something around that people reward themselves too soon, or
There's people on both sides of that equation. We all know somebody that's working a not a real high paying job, and they're out financing the newest cars and the newest clothes, and the wife's got a $2,000 purse or $3,000 purse that they're making minimum monthly payments to pay off this whatever brand name purse.
Mhm.
So I think there's a good healthy balance there. I've been on the wrong side of that for a long time where I lived in the back of my cell phone store. I owned 3 cell phone stores, lived in the back of one of them, sleeping in the broom closet thing for a couple of years, just trying to keep the business growing.
Sure.
And no shower there. I had to drive to the gym each morning to shower, and just had a on the wrong side of being too conservative with saving money and not rewarding myself for good things. So
Well, I think it's an important point that you just identified, just even in talking about it, is setting up that condition ahead of time. I mean, it's such a simple thing. Like if you say, okay, when I get this done, I will do this, whether it's buy something, go do something, talk to someone, or just take time for yourself.
go get a massage.
Go
That's
get a
another super
massage.
cheap one.
Yeah. Invest in yourself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever
Yeah.
you need to do to make that happen. But setting up ahead of time, otherwise you'll wait till the end and then you'll jump into the next project and not really enjoy life. You know, in
Yeah.
years will go by and say, okay, great, I've done all these things, but haven't enjoyed that process. And I think that's one of the things we get to do as a society right now is actually take a reset and say, hey, what's important to me? What's
Yep.
important to me? So in your studying success people and working with people and coaching and doing speaking, what are some of the more common challenges you think people have in relation to, goal setting, having conversations, etc.?
As far as goal setting, I think the biggest problem, the biggest challenge people have with goal setting is most folks aren't actually setting goals. They're they're they may throw out a dream of, man, I'd love to have the new Lexus, or I'd love to go to the Bahamas someday, without any, it's just a pie in the sky dream that is never going to happen because they're not planning for it.
Mm-hmm.
So even if that's somebody that's working, if you're working a minimum wage job, just getting by. If you say, okay, I'm going to pick up, I'm going to go. I don't know if you can still start a paper route as an adult, but I'm going to start some kind of a side hustle, make a few extra bucks, and start saving that up and putting it into the Jamaica cash jar. When you have when you've achieved that goal or whatever, go celebrate and do it. So that's probably the biggest thing I think is people are not actually writing down goals with a quantifiable reason to celebrate.
So the first step is really just setting that goal and turning that dream into a physical, tangible, concrete idea
Yep.
rather than just a someday hazy, that would be nice, a wish,
Yeah.
if you will. And then once they have that clarity, what's the next step? What would you recommend?
Take action. Take massive repetitive action on a daily basis, and don't give up too soon.
What would you say to someone whose peer group is, not supporting them and kind of distracting them or telling them negative things about achieving their dream? Like, how do they handle that kind of negative talk?
That that's another. I've got a in the book as well. How to be successful, think like a leader. That's another one I talk about a lot. Is if you're surrounding yourself with negative people or people who are not positive or uplifting, you're going to have a hard time keeping yourself uplifted. And here's a good example of that where I did not do what I was preaching. So I put out a post. It was actually my first viral post ever, but it was just a meme that said, I would rather I'd rather have a cup, or I'd rather hear your, see what it's called. It was basically like, I'd rather sit down and have a cup of coffee with you and hear your problems, or hear what's stressing you, than attend your funeral.
Mm.
So just saying, hey, if you're stressed, reach out and talk to somebody. And we had tens of thousands of people sharing that post, and I mean it went viral.
Wow.
And so, but because of that, I was tied to all that, and I started having people, I mean, dozens of people a day reaching out saying, hey, my boyfriend's cheating. I'm doing this. Hey, my brother just killed himself. I think I'm
Mm.
gonna do the same thing. All these, and dozens of people a day that were contacting me saying, because I had just put out this meme saying I'd rather hear your story than attend your funeral. And so all these people started reaching out, sharing all the negativity in their life. And so what I didn't realize is, by posting that and having the thing go viral, I actually ended up very depressed myself, because I'm hearing dozens of people daily that are talking about, hey, I'm going to kill myself, I want to whatever. And so as I'm trying to be uplifting, the main influence I had at that time, with hundreds and hundreds of people a week messaging me, is everybody's talking about how terrible life is, how bad they want to kill themselves, how about, so pretty soon, I'm a pretty positive guy, but with surrounding myself with all of that negative influence, it made me pretty down as well. Going, man, if everybody that I talk to ever is suicidal, life sucks. So I had to make it a point to start connecting, reaching out, calling some good buddies, pastor friends, another buddy that's is a venture capitalist, investor guy, some real successful, positive, uplifting people, and just say, hey, let me buy you a cup of coffee. Let's go hang out and chat. Like, I am getting too down with all this negativity, and I actually shut off the replies on that post finally, because it was not a good thing for me. So
Yeah, there's actually a lot of statistics on the suicide rate for medical professionals because of the stress is as high, if not higher, than some branches of the military, which is of
Yeah,
course atrocious as well and ridiculous.
yeah,
And people who help people need help because you're right. So you just even for that short period of time, getting all those emails and posts, it started planting negative seed, negative seed, negative seed, and you had
yeah.
to reach out. How long did it take you to get out of that funk, if you will, and back into your normal, Curtis McCoy mindset?
So the big thing with that, I run a group on Facebook called Success, Motivation, and Inspiration. So we've got well over 250,000 people on that group that are, every day the vast majority of people are sharing, hey, this is a win I just had. Hey, this is something great that just happened to me, whatever. And so it was pretty quick to come back out of it, but I had to choose to stop surrounding myself with the negativity. Just say, hey, feel free to keep sharing this, whatever. But I didn't want to be. I wasn't in a place to be able to keep myself surrounded with negative people all the time and still be uplifting to others. So
As an entrepreneur, as a leader, and running different businesses and having teams like you've had in the past as well, how do you deal with negativity at an organizational level? Have you ever had to talk about someone's mindset who's working with you in the business?
yeah, that's probably one of the most difficult conversations. You were talking about difficult conversations earlier,
Hmm.
and sitting down with somebody. I've had this numerous times where you sit down with an employee and somebody that's got a bad attitude, and you can tell they started out. They may not have had a great attitude when you hired them, which is probably the first mistake I made. Is you need to
Mm.
surround yourself intentionally with positive people. But having those conversations where I've given them a few chances, going, "Hey, your attitude sucks," not in those words, but going, "Hey, what's going on at home?" Or what is the reason that you're feeling and responding the way you are to people? And let them know, hey, and giving them positive influence, saying, "Hey, I can see you're a great leader. You've got a great whatever it is about them that you really admire. Man, buddy, you got a great hair. You got a great head of hair. I'm jealous of your whatever. Pick out something about that you really are jealous, really appreciate about them.
People have
And
not said that to me in 20 years, by the
yeah,
way.
either I'm getting thin up top here, but uh, but picking out something about them that there's always something good you can pick out about somebody, and just trying to, hey, man, people love you. They love your personality. What can we do to help you be more positive and feel happier in this job and feel like you're actually fulfilled? And maybe it's a problem with something that I was doing as far as management, but figuring that out and giving them a couple chances and pretty soon say, hey, this is your last chance. If I hear again that, a customer walks in and you don't stand up and greet them and smile and, if you're sitting there like you're irritated the customer comes in, this is your last chance. You're done. Pack up your stuff and go home if you can't be polite and uplifting and positive and so sometimes it's a matter of just cutting ties and that always sucks, but yeah, sometimes it's better for everybody if you.
So, if I were to hear what you're saying, kind of tying the things we talked about earlier, of course, being effective listener and seeking to understand where they're coming from first. Hey, what's going on? Normally you're this and I'm experiencing this,
Yeah,
having a discussion. And what can we do to support you to be this, right? So getting on that
yeah,
proactive thing. And then if those conversations are not productive, then it gets a little bit more direct and the
yeah,
consequences get even more clear. And because that's the reality, either they're gonna change their behavior or not, and
yeah,
that's really their choice. So what we're doing is putting it in their choice by being clear up front.
yeah. Oh, and
Okay.
pretty soon you're asking, is this going to work for you? Are you going to be positive, uplifting, and can you fix your attitude here, keep your home life at home, and are you able to make this make sure you're the leader that make sure you're the great inspiring leader that I hired you to be. If you can't do that, then you might want to, might need to find somewhere else to work because it's not I don't know, it's kind of a tough conversation, like you said, but
Sure. At that point, do they ever own it and say, "Yeah, I think it's probably just best that I gotta go," or do they always give it another try? Like, what is your experience with that?
I had one. I had one not too long ago that was just like, yeah, I won't go through the details, but yeah, I've had a few that was like, yeah, I understand. Here's what's going on. Sometimes they're crying in the break room, having you pray with them and stuff, going, okay, here's the problems that I'm experiencing, and it changes their life. That may not affect them just at the job, but it may change the rest of their life because they're going, man, my boss saw this leader in me, saw something that nobody else saw. So yeah, I mean, it's just like any conversation; it can go either two ways. But if you're highlighting the positive, I think it helps.
You're right. That's the way conversations can either go the way you want or not the way you want. Are there any tips or ideas that you have to avoid, miscommunication and misunderstanding?
I guess probably tone of voice. If you can focus on tonality and the eye contact, that's a big thing. Look at them and take time to listen. If you're one of the reasons we have such problems with miscommunication in emails and text messages is because you cannot hear the vocal, their tone and see what they're actually trying to tell you there. So I try to have conversations like that in where you're talking there together, live conversation or at least a video call kind of a thing. I hate doing podcasts that are not that don't at least have the video feed because you have no clue what the other person's what they're saying. But
I know that our final product here is going to be audio, but I truly value having that. We're doing video, so we can have that interaction and just have this conversation right here. So because with the companies that you grow, I imagine there's marketing and sales are involved in that. How are you seeing? Do you bring some of those concepts into training your marketing and sales teams about how to create connection and how do we do that in the digital age? Because everyone wants texting and emailing, and we're missing the visual and the vocal component.
so one of the big things with one of my companies, bestcellular.com, is that we're a nationwide telecommunications company. Use the same towers as Sprint, Verizon, and T-Mobile. And a big thing that a lot of phone companies have done that is driving a ton of traffic to us is they've gone to these, you dial the 1-800 number and you press 1 for English and you're running through this teleprompter. I mean, this, automated system trying to get to talk to a live person. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these companies don't even have the live customer service anymore. And so one of the things that we've done with Best Cellular is when you dial the customer service number, it always rings through to a live person. So you dial one number, it rings all of us on cell phone, and whoever picks it up first gets to talk to that customer. So our thing is every single, when a new employee comes on, the very first thing you do when the phone rings, you jump up, stand to your feet, smile, make sure you're smiling with your eyes before you answer the phone. So, hey, John, thanks so much for calling Best Cellular. Glad to talk to you. Instead of, if you're sitting down, shoulders slouched, it's, yeah, thank you for calling Best Cellular. There's a whole different, people can hear the smile.
Well, connecting that back to what you said about, feeling depressed, when someone is making the classic cold calls, right? Doing 100 cold calls a day or something like that. They're looking at their computer, they're looking at a list down, their shoulders are down, their head is down. That goes back to that depression physiology. And that's not, but as you say, stand up, smile with your eyes, because that's really where the smile resides. And you can totally hear that. And that sounds like you guys have better results as a result of changing that communication style. That's awesome.
And you'll talk to a lot of the guys that have done very well. They started out in the telecommunications or the door-to-door meat sales or door-to-door cooking knives or whatever, some kind of multi-level sales. And the guys that killed it are the ones that walk up to the door every single customer. They're smiling, shoulders back, head up, excited to talk to the person. And if that person doesn't want to talk to them, it's, hey, on to the next one. So yeah, that preparing yourself physically for the middle or for the vocal conversation is a huge thing.
Well, that's what leaders have to do, right? Because it's not always roses every single day, and there's challenges. Of course, that's part of being a leader. In your book, I know how do you define leadership for you? What does leadership mean to you?
I guess as far as leadership, you'd say that's not asking somebody else to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. So I outsource a lot of stuff, not as far as like to another country, but I give people the ability to do the job that they're better at than I am. So there's a lot of things I had a guy that does SEO copywriting, that I threw it out there. And when he first started out, for probably the first 6 months or so, I was really working on getting my thumb out of the pie kind of a thing and letting people do what's best, do what they're experienced in. And so, I'm trying to micromanage every post and review everything that he wrote. We were making the largest MVNO and carrier database in the United States. So we had to contact 240 different phone companies, get this porting database, build this, the only complete porting database in the United States. And so I'm watching as this guy's contacting people. We had 7 people building the database. And so I'm watching as he's going through and writing the article. And I'm micromanaging, trying to approve every single article. And, well, you might change these 2 words around. You might do this, whatever. And pretty soon I figured out this guy's an excellent writer. He's a lot better writer than I am. And so if I just let him go, hey, you're doing good, I trust you, he did a lot better job when I finally let him take the reins and I wasn't trying to micromanage everything.
Fantastic. So only asking people to do things that you're willing to do, but also when they've demonstrated that competence, to get out of the way and allow them to thrive. And it sounds like he was even more effective when you weren't trying to micromanage.
Yep.
Yeah. For you personally, how do you know when it's time to let go of those reins and hand that over to someone who's on your team?
That's always a judgment call. I do not have a formula for that.
That's fair. So are there any tips, strategies, ideas that you'd like to discuss with our listeners that we haven't talked about yet in relation to your most recent publication?
So the most recent book, you're talking about the How to Be Successful book?
Yep.
So it's called How to Be Successful, Think Like a Leader. And that book, you can pick it up on Amazon right now. It's $2.99 for the Kindle version. Really an awesome thing that I went through and actually interviewed other leaders and entrepreneurs and interviewed the guy that invented the MP3 player, interviewed Jeff Wilbig, he's the #1 Navy SEAL team sniper in history. He's won the Maxim Magazine Magnum Warrior, Maximum Warrior, some kind of competition. He's just a ridiculous, awesome sniper.
Awesome.
And so I interviewed a lot of folks like that are, top of their game, masters of their craft, and ask them the same list of questions about what is their view on success. A lot of the stuff that you're asking me about, how do they view success? How do they manage and prioritize opportunities? Different stuff like that. So that was a really great compilation of everybody from a church preacher, the owner of a hospital, to a lot of people from different fields, and be able to see how do successful people think and how do you become a leader.
Well, Curtis, thank you so much for being here with us today. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you and stay connected?
I'm real big on Facebook still. I know that's kind of not the cool thing anymore, but I'm big on Facebook. So M. Curtis McCoy, facebook.com/M. Curtis McCoy. If you want to connect with the group, my group on Facebook is Success, Motivation, and Inspiration. And then you can visit successmotivationinspiration.com or mcurtismccoy.com.
Excellent. I'll put those all in the show notes. And again, thank you so much for being here.
Man, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate that.
Again, to connect with Curtis and join him in the Success, Motivation, Inspiration Facebook group, you can find him at mcurtismccoy or at mcurtismccoy.com. Until next time, develop yourself, empower others, and lead by example. Thanks for listening to Key Conversations for Leaders with your host, John Ryan. If you enjoyed the show, please let us know. Give us a rating or write a review. If you have a question, send me an email, john@keyconvo.com. And if you haven't already, connect with me on Twitter @KeyConvo and on LinkedIn under John Ryan Leadership.